I got you. I know you're being live streamed. I always get notified this stuff.
Well, yeah, because if you say no, then it won't take us live.
Oh, really? I have the power?
I think you do have the power of Grayskull in that.
Wow. Excellent.
All right. Oh, muted the thing there.
Oh, I got to turn my thing down. My volume down. This is where I get in trouble sometimes. I get yelled at by
I don't
Mary.
yell at you.
That's where I get yelled at by Mary. All right.
I'll tell you, a certain person is happy to hear that you defended Stonewall, by the way.
Or a certain person?
Yeah, I think you know who I'm talking about.
No.
Our friend in Illinois.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah,
I just still don't know.
Miranda.
Oh, I think okay, never mind.
I guess we have a few friends in Illinois.
Get some friends in Illinois. Yeah, but no, that's well, that's okay. That's stupid. The people, I get it. I get it. I mean, it's not right nor wrong nor whatever. It's just
No.
some people you gotta learn your stuff. You gotta run your mouth. At least know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop me though. Admittedly, right?
You weren't running your mouth though. That's
I
the
don't. I
thing. You
never.
were.
I would never. Anyway.
Trust me, if the Canadians win gold tomorrow, I might be. But
Oh,
we'll see.
you guys got pretty good odds. I'll
See,
tell you
I
that.
got it. I got it mansplained to me yesterday that it was friendly banter. I'm like, no, it's not.
Oh, it's gonna be tough. This 24 hours for you are gonna be tough, Mary. It's gonna be pretty tough. Catching crap at the Packy a little while ago by some
I
local riffraff for
yeah,
doing
that
like
was I
Canadians.
was
That was pretty good. I gotta
I
admit,
was
that was pretty funny.
I was glad you were with me for that because I think those guys would have said something to me otherwise.
No, don't worry about it. It's all good. So what's going on? You're all fired up today. You're in a dangerous mood today. You feel a little You feel a little dangerous. I think you are.
By the way, this Lone Wolf IPA is kind of gross.
Oh well, you gotta finish it.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
So just quickly, Charlotte's on here, and I think it's a play she wrote called The Ghost of Chickamauga. The acoustic shadow will be stage read at the District Theater on April 11th and 12th in Indianapolis.
Oh, okay. That's Yeah, that's cool. Kind of coming into that time again. It's good, even though it's going to snow again here.
Well,
Not
she
like
wrote a play about Chickamauga, and it's getting read on the stage.
Yeah,
So
you mentioned that before somewhere in my imagination. I thought you told that to me before, but maybe you did, maybe you didn't.
she's
Well,
told us
we'll,
before.
we'll never know. Oh, that's yes, I remember that now. I thought you and I have talked about it too. I think,
Yep.
but yeah, but no, it's good to get back and doing this again. We didn't do it last week, and back at it again. And we're excited because Friday we get to hang out with our friend Dave again, Dave Taylor from the Lincoln
Yep.
Assassination People. So we get to do a little bit of booth escape next week, which is
Mhm.
always fun to talk about, which is definitely a good time. So we'll talk about that. We haven't done one of these since we did the Kansas episode.
Uh, two two weeks ago. No, we dropped Kansas last Friday. We did not do a live
Yeah.
last weekend, so we dropped the Kansas. We did an episode in the first Kansas. For those that don't know, last week it's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Look at you with a commercial radio voice, wherever
Just
you get your podcasts.
podcasts.
Spotify, Apple Tunes, wherever you get your podcast. Awful. It's absolutely
You
terrible.
sounded like Hester there for a second.
Hessler.
Oh, real quick,
Um,
I do want to mention that I saw this posted on our friend Jim. He has a Facebook page, James Hessler's, I think it's history. There is the potential for a historic building to get knocked down that has a lot of significance. And he posted about it. It's been shared a few times. If y'all can go check out his Facebook page and read about that, and if you can, send an email to support
yeah, it's the
historic building.
it's the place where Custer had one of his headquarters.
Yeah,
Now, if you go basically south of town, and there's a lot of Gettysburg approach that's
yeah,
available. A lot of people, well, maybe they have it, but you can go visit two taverns, which is a lot of where a lot of the Confederates, Kilpatrick's cavalry was. And there's a place a little further up where Custer's headquarters was that's falling apart. And obviously, our
yeah.
friend Jim is very much into Custer, so he wants to help preserve that. So if you're on his Facebook or you follow his history page, and and a lot of these, unfortunately, a lot of these people look at Gettysburg as kind of in a panorama here, just focused on
Yeah.
just where the battle was. The battle is everywhere. It goes north,
Yeah.
east, west, south, and so there's a lot that you want to save on that. And that building is falling apart. And the Klingle House is big here. That's in town. That's falling apart too. But there's a lot of history. And if you can't kick in money, that's fine. You can at least support it by visiting these places, right?
Yeah. And when we're done this, we'll share Jim's post from our podcast so that y'all can see it as well and be able to maybe help out with that just by even sending an email and making, concern because it is an area of the battle that doesn't get studied as much. And I have to say, we took advantage of Adams County Day last Monday here in town, and we went to the visitor center, saw the movie, looked at the museum, but we also went over to the Heritage Center, which I mean, we can get in for free anyway because we're Adams County residents, so that's every day.
Ooh.
But if you're in town, go to the Heritage Center. It's just on Steinway Ave, right? It's pretty much it's next to the ABC, Appalachian Brewing Company. But their video in there that they have is excellent. Like it explains the battle so well. And I love that they included East Calvary Field in it.
No, and I will say, but shame on us because we can literally walk. It's 100 yards from where we live, and we've never been before. And it's a great place to visit. It's got basically the original battle of. They put you in the basement that the Adams County had, like you just said. But it's a little bit different. It's not as flashy, admittedly, but they got some good stuff. They got some of the original wax sculptures that they had.
Yeah.
That everybody wondered where they disappeared. Maybe they sold those. It was about 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, but the video they have there that explains the battle is really, really good. Like really good
The video
overview.
there explains the battle is better than the one at the visitor center. It is.
Yes, I would agree with that. My issue with the visitor center, it is very like it's great. Don't get me wrong. I love the visitor center, but it is definitely skewed towards the movie.
You think so?
Yeah, with the quotes they have, with the
Yeah,
people they recognize, like
I guess so.
I'm sorry,
Um,
but how many Second Corps flags do you need to have?
well, the Second Corps was the only flag corps fought at Gettysburg. Don't you know that?
According to some, yes.
Yeah, tell me about it. Talk about the A team, Mary.
I hate that term. Oh my God. Anyway, um, and Estelle said she really liked the Heritage Center as well. And thank you to the people that have said they enjoyed our Kansas episode. Estella enjoyed it, Fragile X Factor, and James, thank you. Yeah, we really enjoyed doing that. And doing the first Kansas has kind of opened us up to being able to do more episodes about these smaller, like these little known battles like Poison Spring, which gets mixed in with Jenkins Ferry, like all that. So we're gonna start looking at those battles as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them because we talked. I mean, they fought people don't consider the first Kansas. They primarily fought in 7 battles. The one we talked primarily about the Island Mound one because that was kind of the first battle. It was the first time that
Yeah.
Black American troops fought against the Confederates, and so we talked about that. There's the first and second Cabin Creeks, Honey Spring, Camden Expedition, Poison Springs, and then Jenkins Ferry. And Poison Springs is important because of the slaughter that took place, the massacre took place at the hands of Marmaduke's guys, right? So um, Poison Springs is one that definitely deserves a lot of more attention, and Honey Springs does as well because you're fighting against the Choctaws. You're
Yeah.
talking, and the first Kansas was primarily made up of not only escaped black slaves but escaped Indian slaves from the Cherokees from the Oklahoma Territory,
Yeah.
and that's kind of an eye-opening thing too because you had everyone was stand waiting, and you taught that who fought for the Confederacy versus the Union, but there was a lot of emancipated uh, Cherokees who were slaves to other
Yeah.
Cherokees. And they were also emancipated in 1863. But what happened was they got their emancipation basically proclamation early in 63, but it said that you're not going to be freed until the end of the year because they wanted one more harvest probably to
Yeah.
get out of them. But
Yeah.
they started to escape into Kansas, and Kansas became kind of like a big sucking ground, brought everybody in,
Hmm.
and so you had an opportunity to help to bring in an army. But obviously, the first Kansas is they're famous for a lot of different reasons. We talk about William D. Miller, who he commanded Company D. He raised that regiment, and he was really the first black officer. And it's a shame because we talked a lot about how once emancipation kicked in January of '63, he was immediately fired. They got rid of him,
Yeah.
and it's people want to talk a lot about the great emancipator of Lincoln and stuff like that, but there's a lot of sides to him with this that
Yes.
don't jive with the
Yeah.
narrative,
Yeah.
and this is definitely one of them because I don't understand because you had a lot of white officers in camp at Camp Scott who looked at Matthews and said, "This guy's fantastic. His company is the best in the regiment. They drill the best. They are the best." So whether or not he could command them was proven. The troops, loved him, both white and black. And then he was basically summarily fired, and he was so aggravated that he left the army for good. They gave him a title later, but by then he's like, you know what? I'm good. I'm
Yeah,
out. See you later.
there's a few people that happened to African American, like, I think during the Civil War. Just some comments here. Christopher Walter, our friend, he agrees
Oh,
with
yeah.
me about the visitor center, and I just like it is very skewed towards the movie. But remember there was that one panel they had there where it talks about Hancock basically coming in to save the day, and
Yeah.
no mention of Howard, like chaos, and I'm like, no, that's not how it happened. Um, Alstella says there's a lot of stuff from Scott Hartwick in there,
Mhm.
which he's more of an Antietam guy, right?
Scott Hartwig. Well, he was the Chris Gwynn here of Gettysburg for a while. I mean, I've known Scott from Antietam. That's where I kind of associate with him. But Scott Hartwig is somebody who was on that top shelf list of knowledge, and he just isn't. He's done a lot for Sharpsburg as well here as Gettysburg. No, no,
Yeah.
no question. But yeah, he had a lot of. He was instrumental in the heritage. I think a lot of the stuff I think is his personal collection, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Um, James says, I still can't figure out how much of an abolitionist Jim Lane was.
Well, James Lane wasn't an abolitionist. James Lane was somebody you don't forget. James Lane, he was an interesting fellow. He was someone who kind of turned a little bit. He was somebody who, for the most part, he was not an abolitionist, but he hated secession. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy from he was from Indiana, from the Kansas territory for the most part.
Yeah.
He no, he was from Indiana. He was, and he ultimately ended up being a senator. He was one of the first state senators from Kansas
Mhm.
when they came into the Union with the Kansas Nebraska
Yeah.
Act. But then he kind of turned into, I don't want to say an abolitionist, but he was kind of like a
Yeah.
friend of the abolition of the African Americans. He supported them, but then he supported Jackson after the war, and he became more of a capital D Democrat,
Yeah.
um, supporting Andrew Jackson. I mean
Yeah.
Andrew Johnson. So he was kind of an interesting guy. He pissed a lot of people off because he was accused of stealing from the Indians.
Yeah.
And he pissed off the Democrats, he pissed off the Republicans, he pissed off the Indians, um, and he ended up shooting himself in the head. And he even got that
Yeah.
screwed up because it took him 10 days to die.
That kind of ending, I was like, whoa. And then Alex says Poison Springs is something I've spent a lot of time studying. It's really awful when you look at it. I definitely want to do an episode about that one.
No, and we talked about Poison Springs a
A little bit
little
about
bit in
it,
the
yeah.
battle, but no one talks about John Marmaduke, Samuel Maxey, James M. Williams. Those people who we talk about in the episode are people who are extremely important to this effort. We talked a little bit about the Camden expedition, all that stuff, and
Yeah.
everything went, but there's a lot of moving parts. We've talked before a lot about a lot of what U.S. Grant wanted in '64, Red River campaign, Overland campaign, Shenandoah Valley campaign,
Mm.
everything all moving at the same time. This is part of the Red River one. And this is interesting because this is one that someone like Williams did not want to do.
Yeah.
It, but they ended up having to steal supplies because they were so afraid they were going to run out of food on the way. And they were right. They were going through they were going to deep red
Yeah.
territory, rebel territory. They were going through a lot of places where there was not going to be a lot of food.
Yeah.
And they got to a point near Poison Spring where they found a whole bunch of corn. And for whatever reason, they didn't take it. They went by it, and they realized they needed the corn. They went back. By then, John Marmaduke sees them. He blocks
Yeah.
the road, and you have that battle. And they have the first Kansas or the 79th USCT at that point have to guard it. And it was really an Indian versus Indian thing, right?
Yeah, that's what goes back. I think it's like the Choctaws and the Cherokees. I want
Well,
to get more up on my Native American history here, but they were like they fought against each other, and I think that's what that goes back to.
what happened was the first Kansas. I mean, first Kansas 79, same damn thing, right? A lot of the Cherokee nation who fought with them fought against the Choctaws, who they hated
Yeah.
at the Battle of Honey Springs, not far before. And the Unions, the Cherokees and the First Kansas really got the jump on the Choctaws and really beat them up hard. And so they had that revenge thing. So when they had the opportunity, if not long later, to get to Poison Spring, they took revenge on the First Kansas. And so they slaughtered most of them. They were scalped. And this is both the blacks and the Indians. And that's what it was. And it's one of those very underappreciated battles. People think about Fort Pillow, they think about the Crater, about these massacre battles, right?
Yeah.
This is up there with them. And when you look at overall the numbers, they're not as big as the Crater. You're talking about a relatively less than 500 casualties, but a lot of them are summarily executed. So it just kind of depends on how you want to look at it. But we'll do a full thing on Poison Spring. But it's a fascinating battle, and the first Kansas. I mean, look, I'm a Massachusetts guy, and I love my 54th Mass, and I get all that. But they get too much credit, and they really do. And they get. Unfortunately, the problem is it turns into this belief that it's the first attempt at an African American regiment. And the movie is great. I love the movie Glory. But if they made it about the first Kansas, it might have been a little more. It might have resonated a little bit more because it's mostly escaped slaves.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of elements in the first Kansas thrown into the movie Glory. There's a couple comments and questions here. Miranda just said she finished a book for school on the Sand Creek Massacre in November of 1864 and the fight between calling it Civil War battle versus massacre by Union troops. Fragile X Factor says they're doing a lot of research on the USCT. In this context, I came across Lincoln's General Order 223, Protection of Colored Troops. And their question is, do you know if this was actually enforced?
I mean, it's a lot like yes, it was. But I mean, it was one of those paper things. You take a look at some of the things that Sherman did.
Yeah.
His order, don't burn Columbia. It's on paper. Of course, there are going to be abuses to it.
Yeah.
I mean, but at that point, you're realizing that once you get to emancipation, and a big part of that was to keep the foreign powers away. I get that. You kind of had to own it a little bit. You couldn't go. You had to put these things in place, which is why there's such a focus on the 13th, the 14th, and eventually the 15th Amendments, because you had to put some teeth behind it. So yeah, it was, but of course there were going to be abuses to it.
Yeah.
None of these people going back in time. There are very few people who were real, true abolitionists that people would say, like even today, would be considered abolitionists. There weren't many of them.
No, there weren't. It was, and if you were an abolitionist, you tend to get kind of sidelined, and you see that happening, especially in the Army of the Potomac, where the politics of that are they're very much there. You have men like Meade, Hancock, and Reynolds who are not abolitionists, and you have men like Doubleday, Howard, and I think AQ's on here. Her and Steve were tuning in from Rockport. I think Barlow was an abolitionist as well, and it depended how much you talked about it. Like Howard was a guy that, he gets his ass kicked at West Point when he's a student there because he's very vocal about how he feels about African Americans and what, because someone said, like, what was it? It was likely not SD Lee. It was probably
Fitzhugh Lee.
Fitzhugh Lee was jackass. He said something about we shoot or something.
He said in where we're from, we shoot blacks like cattle.
Yeah.
He didn't use the word blacks.
No.
But in Howard, Howard had one of his closest friends was a little black kid.
Yep.
He grew up with.
Yep.
And so he grew up with, he grew up with the understanding that they're normal people.
Yeah.
But you're getting to West Point, you're getting to the Southern people, the slave. I mean, and there are people in the South who basically felt the same way as abolition. But they're And in the North, it was more of that. There was more of the Boston abolitionist thing.
Yeah.
Mariah Child, William Wood Garrison, David Child, people like that, Mary Peabody, who kind of focused on it. Henry David Thoreau, and they kind of made a niche little thing, and they were kind of the freaks out, the weirdos, and they were pacifists. We've talked about this before. We did Pottawatomie Creek. And John Brown was the one who's like, hey, listen, this pacifist thing is for suckers.
Guy here.
Yeah, let's
his signature is going to be my next tattoo.
You know,
Yeah, AQ said Barlow was an abolitionist, but not as
he had to
outspoken
keep
as
quiet
others.
about it. He had
Yeah.
a lot of them kept it to themselves, and because again, you talk about such a sea change in in society. I mean, we
Mhm.
look back on it now, it's like, well, what the hell? But again, that's a big deal. It was a big deal for the economy. It was a big deal about how you feel you're better than people.
Mhm.
You're chosen people. You're better, and that's just and there's a lot too, and they're still fighting that war. That's never going to go away here. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, and and that's why when you look at some of the politics of what happened to some people, how they're treated, especially after the Battle of Gettysburg, um, it's it's very interesting. And I mean, when Howard goes out west, he's carrying that he's an abolitionist. He's carrying that with him. But Army of the Tennessee and that whole thing out west under Sherman, even though Sherman is Sherman is, let's be clear, he is not an abolitionist.
well, most
Doesn't
of Robert
no,
Booth
he's
Shaw
not,
was
but
not
he
an
did.
abolitionist. I mean,
No, that's what
I mean,
James just asked
the
that.
Shaw family was. I mean, they were
Yeah.
rich Boston blue bloods. They were on the west side of Boston Common versus the dirty east side of Boston Common. It's funny how society was back then. Go to east side of Boston Common, buy a condo, see how much you're going to pay for it. You're talking Beacon Hill versus the east and south side, and Shaw was, like we said before, he was the Spalding Smales of his
Yeah.
day, a rich, snotty, overprivileged little bratty kid who was given toys to play with by going, and he'll fight in Antietam. He's gonna be wounded there, and to his credit, he comes back. But the movie Glory, he's presented with this opportunity to
Hmm.
take over the 54th Massachusetts, this fledgling regiment, and he's going to make history. And he accepts it, and this is going to be great. In real life, he said no. He said, hell, I ain't doing this. And finally, he came around to it. But he did come around, though. He certainly did. If you go to Camp Meade in Massachusetts now, which is just a
Hmm.
little bit just south of, like, where, Milton, Quincy, Boston
Yeah.
area. Um, and his headquarters is still there. You can go visit it. But he did come around, and a lot of them did. But James Lane, which kind of goes back to the original question a
Hmm.
million years ago with this early in the chat, he came around, but he kind of went back. He was a
Yeah.
strange fellow. He looked like Kramer from Seinfeld. First of all, he just did. If you look at his picture, he just reminds me that he has that hair.
Yeah.
Uh, but he's somebody who felt that this was the best tool. And I think when you study the first Kansas, you have to look at the situation they're in. For the furthest west, realistically, I know it's California. I'm not about in the middle of the country as far as the states. They end up being isolated. You've got the Confederate Indians in Oklahoma, and you've got Missouri right to your east. You got the bleeding Kansas thing going on. They're on an island. They're by themselves. They need to defend themselves.
Yeah.
They've only got 12 regiments to defend the state and to defend the Union. They needed men, and you're having this infusion of black escapees
Yeah.
into Kansas, and they decided, well, the Militia Act of 1864. This says I can do it, so I'm going to do it,
Hmm.
and he did.
Yeah.
And Lincoln said, nope, you're not going to. What amazes me about the first Kansas, though, is that the fact that these guys went without pay for almost a year, and they still fought. They still stuck it out. Lincoln and Stanton and Halleck did everything possible to make this thing not happen. No uniforms, no supplies. They wore gray uniforms in a battle
Yeah.
because they could not find blue uniforms. They had to make their own from gray cloth they found at Fort Leavenworth, and they fought in in, in
In
the
gray, yeah, which I found really interesting. And
yeah,
AQ said that she agrees with what you've said, and she said Shaw's father basically forced him to accept the position.
yeah.
54th. Funny comment from Jeffrey. He's on here, our Bills fan. He said Mosby must be out in a raid at our headquarters. He said he saw my head turn because Mosby, and I
Oh, I thought
said,
it was the real Mosby.
yeah,
He's
no, our cat, obviously. But I said, yeah, he's chasing down his mouse Sheridan.
yeah, he's not a real mouse. He has a fake mouse. He's
Yeah,
called
well,
Sheridan.
he and Sheridan are in the basement right now.
Yeah, he's been a thing today, no question.
He's got his little mice.
Well, yeah, he's having a good time. So
But yeah, the abolitionist thing is definitely an interesting thing to study because there's obviously different levels of it. As you said, there's the ones that are very much pacifist, and John Brown is like the one that's like, it's not going to work that way, kids. And
well, I mean, he knew the deal. And that famous quote he said, this paraphrasing, and this war will be settled with blood. Um,
Yeah, I've had it here. He said, I, John Brown, am quite now certain that the crimes of this guilty land can never be purged away but with blood. I had, as I now think, vainly flattered myself that without very much bloodshed it might be done.
what's so cool about that story is, people mistakenly think he read that, he said that from the gallows,
Yep.
because you see that a lot. And the story was when he was being led out to be executed, okay, and let out the jail door. The jail door is actually at the Gettysburg Visitor Center. You go see the actual door, John Brown in Charlestown, right? And he's led out, and the guard who had been guarding him for the last couple months asked him for his autograph. Can you please sign, because you're famous, whatever. That thing he wrote on the autograph. He wrote it all out and signed it and gave it to the guy. And that became his sort of his goodbye to the world.
Mhm.
And he refused to say anything at any point up until then. And even at the gallows, he walked to the gallows and didn't say a word. He just stood
Yep.
there. And so that was his way of doing it. But it's kind of a neat story that somebody had that, and he obviously turned it in somewhere, became famous. But he ended up it was based on an autograph.
Yeah,
Avoid the clap, Jimmy Dugan.
and Jeffrey says John Brown's buried in Lake Placid. I know you've been to his grave
Yeah,
before.
yeah. Lake Placid. Remember Lake Placid?
Is that where you got your Soviet jersey?
Yeah, I got a USA and I got a CCCP jersey when I was
Oh
up
yeah,
there.
Jeffrey just said relevant with the 1980 jersey. I should have worn your Soviet jersey.
Oh yeah,
Could
I
you
remember
imagine?
that. No, I bought both. There's this obviously they sell all that stuff up there, and I gotta buy both just for the history part. It's pretty cool. And but yeah, you go up there. It's a great place. Lake Placid Brewery is fantastic. You'd love that. Saranac Lake is right there. But you can go to John Brown's farm, where not only is he buried, but his kids are. A lot of the people who were killed in the Harper's Ferry raid are buried there, and he's got a nice statue there. He's at the farmhouse. And that's a great visit. If you've been to Lake Placid, if you go up to Fort Tiger, Conderoga, keep going. It's definitely worthwhile. It's definitely worthwhile to go visit Lake Placid, not just for the hockey, but just
Yeah.
for the history.
Comment here too from Luke saying, and I we've talked about this, doing this. The entire scope of the Civil War impacted the Native Americans, and actions during it really should get more credence. And I agree with that. And we've started to touch on it in our first Kansas. We talked about it, and I think it was Pea Ridge
Pea
or
Ridge
Wilson Street. Yeah, Pike's Indian Brigade.
oh,
There's
I-
also in Michigan, and I didn't finish it, the book, unfortunately, so I have to check it out again from the library. But it's a young adult, so it's meant for like a younger audience kind of thing. So probably 15 and up.
so it's up to your speed,
It's got language I can understand.
right? A
Um,
lot of pictures, probably.
it does actually, yeah,
Those
because
pop-up books.
yep, yeah, it's got pop-ups of the yeah. So it's about the Michigan. They would be called Anishinaabe now, but they were like I think the Huron or the Iroquois. Um, about the fifth, they were in the I think it's the fifth Michigan and the sharpshooters, and
Mhm.
it's such a fascinating story. It talks about how they became the sharpshooters because the way they would hunt, how they were trained to hunt,
Sure.
that made them such good sharpshooters. But we want to do an episode about the Native Americans in the Civil War and not just focusing on the Civil War aspect, but there's other stuff that happened to them as well during the
No,
Civil War.
well, there was. I mean, there's a Lincoln thing with Minnesota.
Yeah.
There's all that. There's obviously the Choctaw, the Cherokees. There's all like you said, Canada. There's a lot of it. The Native Americans is a big part of the Civil War story, and it's one that just is very rarely told. I mean, very rarely told. I mean, it's surprising. I think some people were surprised that there were Native Americans, like we said, in the first Kansas. They
Yep.
just assume that it's otherwise. And that whole history is fascinating too, because a lot of them left the tribe, and
Mhm.
because the way they left, they were able to go back to the tribe. There are a lot of people now who in Oklahoma who are part of the Cherokee tribe who still have Cherokee Nation status because of the way the whole thing went down after the war. And it's kind of
Yeah.
it's an interesting study when you look at it. Um, there's a book that God, I blank on her name. Is a woman who wrote a book. She's a Cherokee Native American who wrote a book on the Cherokees in the Civil War. And I looked at a little bit for this Kansas episode to get a couple of quotes out of it, but it is a fascinating history. It really, really is, and it's one
Mhm.
that people don't really think about.
No.
You just don't. It's just I mean, why would you? I guess, but it's an important part of the story, and we did Pea Ridge, but we're going to do Poison Springs. We'll do a bigger, more encompassing episode. Obviously, Albert Pike is someone who I know from my other world, so
Yeah.
there's that aspect of it all too. So it's pretty cool, you know.
Yeah. James says Between Two Fires is a good read on Indians in the War. Jeffrey says he's talking about heading back to Lake Placid just last night, and he said it's great seeing Brown's Farm move me in a way I didn't expect. Definitely didn't think his headstone would be behind glass.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. It's like a big plexiglass thing, and I'm not sure that they preserve it or vandalism or what. But there's a fence and there's like a big rock behind it, and if you go in the fence, you can go in there, and on the right hand side on the ground, they're buried in the ground with these big slabs over them. His son and a lot of the other Harper's Ferry people who were killed and were later executed. And they were all buried there as well. And definitely worth it. I mean, it's just, first of all, Lake Placid is beautiful. And there's so many things to do in that part of the world. But yeah, when you go, if you go into Lake Placid and you go in, you're driving up there, you go right by the farm, John Brown's farm, right here. So it's not like you got to go out of the way. It's literally right on the way. You go, right where the big ski jumps are. It's right past that. You can't miss it.
Yeah. Cool. And Jeffrey said the Native American part is very understudied, which when you look at it leads to a deeper understanding of what freedom means.
And there's a lot of the political thing, because you got to think about it. You're fighting for a side, if you're fighting at all, and there's no winners for you.
No,
because if you're fighting for the Union and you win, there's no promise of freedom that comes out of that, right? It was the Civil War was ultimately fought over the future of the West, if you really think about it, a lot of different ways. And they were not at they didn't have a seat at the table with a lot of this, like they said, the only rights they had was right this way, right? That's kind of that's kind of what it was. So for them to fight, it's on either side, it's remarkable. It really is.
Yeah, and just so it's sorry, I correct myself. It's not the 5th Michigan; it's the 1st Michigan Sharpshooters. Often confused with the 5th. Company K was predominantly what we would now call Anishinaabe, and so they're Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi. Those are the tribes they're from, and they were in major battles, highly skilled marksmen. They fought the Wilderness, Petersburg, because they were mustered in later in the war. And what was interesting about this book that I was reading is that there are still descendants in Michigan of these guys that still live there, which is really, really fascinating. And because I think I got maybe halfway through the book and I had to return it. So I want to get it again. I might just buy it because it's a really good book. From what I read about it, what I read, I really, really enjoyed. And yes, it has pictures.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
Pictures. No, but it is, you're right, though. It is a fascinating history with it. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but I'm glad people like the first Kansas episode, because I definitely enjoyed it. It's fun when you do one of these you can really, really get into. And it's it goes back to that debate of who was first, right? And that's a big misconception with this, because the truth be told, the 79th USCT was the 5th, and the 54th was the first demand. So that makes sense. Yeah. The first Kansas didn't get put in until January 13th, so they were a couple weeks in. And that's where the confusion likely comes from, is who was if you go online and say who was the first Black regiment, everyone's going to say 54th Mass, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. But it's very Pavlovian.
Well, and
we witnessed that happening a couple weeks ago.
I know. Well, but the problem is you have the first South Carolina, you got the first Louisiana Home Guard. You got different. You've got different sets, so you can debate who was first. It's like who broke first at Gettysburg, first the 11th, right?
No, it's the first.
But it's not. It's first. But it's not. You can't debate that the first Kansas was the first Black regiment to fight a Civil War battle at the Battle of Island Mound, because that's just factually true. It just is at Bates County in Missouri, and we talk some of them about some of the Cherokee. John Sixkiller, one of the greatest names ever.
That
he was killed.
That's obviously his English name.
Yeah, I would go with that too. But that's a big part of it. He was somebody who joined And he was a slave owner, believe it or not. And some of his subordinates in his scouting party were his slaves that he emancipated.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, I mean, to think about the emancipation thing was you have emancipation, you have manumation. You know what the difference is?
Isn't that where you're freed, but you still owe?
You're manumated means you're freed usually through a legal decree, like a will. When
Yeah.
I die, my slaves are freed. You're
Mm.
manumated. That's what Robert E. Lee's wife. That's what happened with his slaves.
Was supposed to happen.
Right, right. Well, they eventually did, but
Yeah.
versus emancipated, which is a law, says you have to be freed. You're done. But there's a different thing. A lot of them were manumated, and so they were freed, and they still went to fight anyway.
Mhm.
But a lot of them were escaped slaves who crossed right over the Missouri River. George Washington,
Yeah.
not the father of the country, but the escaped slave who fought for the first Kansas. He walked right across the frozen river,
Wow.
and he was one of the first to sign up. Another guy who history doesn't really know.
No.
He's the other
Well,
George Washington.
that's the thing. A lot of these men and women get lost to history because whether they're part of a minority group and haven't been talked about enough. But the book I was talking about, The First Michigan Sharpshooters, is called Deadly Aim. It's written by Sally M. Walker.
Okay.
And she's like one of from what I've read about her, she's like one of the primary people that researches them. But really, really good book.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's anytime you can really learn something. What's good about the Civil War, it's like this for any war, but that's our thing, obviously. Is there's so many different ways and things you can learn that are new. Like it's amazing that in a 4-year period you can learn something completely new that just opens the doors to something different.
Yeah.
And I think the Native American aspect of it's a huge one. And I think the role of the African American Black freed and escaped slaves who fought is another big part of it. And
Yeah.
we saw a lot of that, especially, not just the 54th, but the 55th Mass. Some of the cavalry troops that came out of Massachusetts who were free, who were African American, and how many ultimately helped turn the battle. And there are people who don't even understand, at the crater at Petersburg, how many African Americans fought there and how many were slaughtered there and how that was a
Yep.
continuation of that, and it was the white officers who were really targeted.
Yeah. Can you see the comments?
Yeah, I have my glasses, but I can't.
So Luke wrote something, it's in Russian. I'll read POCC backwards NR. That's Russian.
Russia. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I responded with AA, which is da.
Russia.
How do you say it? Russia? Da?
Russia. Look at you. You're so cultural.
I had beer in my Russian lesson yesterday, and I remember it. Pivo.
Piva.
Piva.
Piva, vino, beer and wine. But there's always cool things to learn about it. That's pretty fun.
So Estella asked, I'm not sure if you both mentioned it or not. Did the men just cross the lake or did their families come with them?
Their families came, and we mentioned before, a lot of when they advertised for the first Kansas, they put poster boards up, kind of like, when you're hiring or something, and they said, you sign up, you and your entire family are free. So your wife, your mother, your girlfriend, both, whatever you had, they're free. Okay. Your children. So it was a big incentive to sign. So a lot of them did leave all together and they escaped together. Now, when they came to Kansas, a lot of the women were put in roles of nurses, cooks, a lot of things like that. So they're all together in the camp. There were a lot of women at Island Mound and who travel with them. But those gray uniforms were all sewn together by the wives and the sisters and the daughters. And so they all went together and they were all free. That was the big incentive. You're going to get fed, you're going to get paid, which didn't plan itself out. And Lane was accused of lying to them at the point, but he didn't know. He didn't know they were going to get screwed. But there was the freedom for not only them, but their entire families.
Yep.
And so it created that big vacuum into Kansas, from Missouri, from Louisiana, Texas, from North South Carolina. If I go to Kansas, I sign up. I got to fight for the Union because they associated fighting for the soldier, being a fighter, as freedom, and they wanted. It was worth risking their lives, and they did.
Yep.
Their population went from 600 blacks in 1861 to 6,000 in 1862. That's a huge number. That's how this promise of freedom for their whole families was brought in.
Yeah.
They didn't leave their families behind and go fight. They all went together, which is kind of a cool story, a cool part of what James Lane did when he did that. That's why when you find out not an abolitionist. Well, I mean, he wasn't one, but he played one on TV, I guess. He played the role
Yeah.
um, because he got a lot of recruits that way.
He's one of those more complicated figures that you don't hear much about in the Civil War. Um, and I mean, it's fun learning about these lesser known people because I think it leads you down different rabbit holes, I
Mhm.
guess. And I mean, I found myself, and I know about C.F. Smith, but reading this book about Shiloh, I'm hearing about him all the time. And the guy is at Fort Donelson and he's like, no terms for the rebels. And Grant's like, dude, we gotta, we
He's
have
a
to
guy. He's a
have
guy who could use a little hydrogen peroxide. By the way, might have
terms.
saved,
Yeah.
might have made him a little happier.
Every time I get a scrape on my leg, I'm gonna think of him.
Well, same thing with the um, what's his name, Richard G. Anderson.
Yes.
Not Richard Herron Anderson. He got shot at the Battle of Antietam at the Sunken Road. Just hit his foot. Didn't think much about it. Killed him later.
Yeah. Well, I don't
Infection.
think C.F. Smith thought much about the scratch on his leg either. And
I'm on a boat.
yeah.
That's how he gets. He's screaming a boat.
I know he was on a boat. I haven't got to that part yet in the Shiloh book, but I'm waiting for that to hear about how he got the scrape on his leg
Yeah.
that killed him. But he's interesting because he was one of Grant's instructors at West Point. And flash forward to 1862, and Grant is now his like commanding officer. And C.F. Smith is kind of like, well, whatever. And Grant is like, this is awkward. That's what he's telling people. It's so awkward. You were like my teacher. And he's like, whatever, I'll deal with it. And Halleck's like, this isn't right.
Halleck didn't like anything. That was his problem.
Halleck, so funny. I found a post I did on Facebook a couple years ago. It was from yesterday in my memories. And it was about Sherman talking about how underrated Halleck was. And I was like, well, that aged well.
Yeah, well, I mean, Halleck wanted me. He looked in the mirror and he saw Grant.
Yeah.
Everything Ulysses Grant did, I mean, don't forget it was his territory. He was the man out there. He got sent east. Um, Everything that Grant did and achieved, he thought was going to be him. But
Yeah.
obviously, he wasn't U.S. Grant.
Mm-mm.
Not most people aren't. No one is,
Yeah.
But that's how it is.
And what's interesting too about C.F. Smith is that he dies on April 24th, 1862. So about 2 weeks after the Battle of Shiloh. And I read one article about him this morning that, and this is interesting. His death is one of the reasons why Grant and Sherman become so close, because I think Smith's death propels Sherman into the position that Smith held, or is able to become closer to Grant because of that. So that's really interesting when you think about how some of these deaths, like whether it's C.F. Smith or Zollicoffer or Kearney, how they affect the dynamics that go forward. And really, when you look at it, the friendship between Grant and Sherman is one of the best known ones in the Civil War and is very influential, I think, on the outcome of the Civil War because they were able to work together so well.
Yeah, no, they're just this that's the hardest part about it. We saw it throughout this was um how not be able to work together was such a big deal about that, and that was a big part of it.
Mhm.
Um, but that was certainly one of those things.
Yep.
Um,
And I think Sherman was a lot like C.F. Smith in the sense that even though like Sherman outranked Grant, right?
Sherman outranked Grant. Well,
But is he higher in rank than
I'm
Grant?
not sure. No, he wasn't higher ranking Grant.
No, he was so no, the quote was, I'm older than him, but he's higher in rank. Something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. But
Yeah,
Sherman didn't have a problem taking orders from him at all, just like C.F. Smith. And I think that's why the friendship worked. Whereas if you had someone that felt like, oh, I'm older than Grant, I don't want to take orders from him, then you're going to have issues. I think Halleck thought he was the biggest, like kind of the biggest dog or whatever in the fight.
hmm
And he found out that, like, oh, people aren't going to be loyal to me, kind of thing. But it's these friendships and also the not friendships that have influence on the Civil War too. You look at someone like Sheridan and Warren, how that goes down near
yeah,
the end of the war and what it causes, what it ultimately is, one of the reasons Jeb Stuart gets killed.
Yeah, no, no,
Because
no
Meade is
question.
like, I'm tired of you kids fighting. Sheridan, you go play on your horses and chase Jem down and just get out of my hair for a while.
Yeah.
Um, Trevor says in North Carolina, Lumbee Indians known as the Lowry Gang fought and hid
Mhm.
from the Confederate Home Guard. Lumbee Indians were forced to build Fort Fisher.
And the Henry Berry Lowry,
Mhm.
Lumbees. Yeah, that was on North Carolina. That was when they were hiding in the swamps, and the Confederates came going for them. They ended up killing. I think it was Henry Lumber got killed. Lowry got killed, and then that went past the war. That went into 1868, 69. That went on and on. So you had these people who have killed a couple of. I remember that I've thought about this in forever, but I think there was a situation where um, Confederates sent troops and they killed a couple of the Lowrys, and it ended up going back and forth. They got broken out of jail and they killed some Confederates and ended up being a big thing in North Carolina. But yeah, that's so many aspects to the war that, especially when it comes to the Native Americans, you don't really think about. And that's seen Free State of Jones, the movie,
Yeah.
when they're hiding out in the swamp, is kind of, I don't want to say it was an homage to the to the Lowry War, but it was
Yeah.
it was basically similar. It was just imagine that situation of how they had it.
Yeah.
So that was a good call. I haven't thought about that in forever. That's a good one.
And so James said there's a couple questions here. We'll do James first. Stan Wadey and all the politics attendant Eli Parker and his brother, probably Civil War Indians with highest profiles by media and historians. Yes, they're the names you hear the most, especially
Well,
Parker.
yeah. Well, he Parker's famous because he was at Appomattox, and he has that quote that may or may not happen about he's the only actual American here, and
Yeah.
people say that didn't happen. Stan Wade, he fought. He was a Confederate commander, so he fought. Um, so that's it's however you want to play it, but either one, there's a lot of people who went into that. Go from there, you know.
And then Estella asks, so what if caused General Grant to hesitate for Sherman's march to the sea?
To hesitate.
Yeah, Grant and Lincoln hesitated.
Well, I think the primary part of it was, but if we did an episode, I think we did an episode on this. Freaking no, no, we did.
Yeah, we did.
He wanted Sherman to have his army continue along because they wanted to meet up in Nashville,
Yeah.
and he ultimately said, "Well, you do your march, you do it, you do your thing, and we'll break off Schofield and we'll have him go to Nashville because they wanted to join up with George Thomas in
Hmm.
Nashville
Yeah.
to hold that and to defend that city." And Sherman's going to take a lot of his men away from that. So the idea of breaking off men in his mind to go across for really a supply run to get to Savannah to meet up
Yeah.
there. And I don't know this, but I have a feeling that's why Grant didn't have him come all the way to Virginia.
Yeah.
I think that Sherman made such a deal about this. He wanted to do it. And Grant said no. Lincoln said no. But he kept pushing. Come on,
Yep.
come on, come on, Dad. Please let me do it. I'll let you go. Okay, fine. Just go. Do your thing. And then you can come up to us. You can go through North Carolina, South Carolina. You can join us in Petersburg.
Yep.
But when he gets to that area, Grant says, you know something, Sherman? Just stay where you are. Just we
Hmm.
don't need you to stay. I want Meade's guys to get credit for this. I want the AOP and not you. And I swear, as close as they were, that was his way to stick it back to Sherman for not listening to him. And
I
this is just
think so.
this is just my opinion, not fact.
Yep.
But I think it was his way of being sort of put in timeout a little bit
Yeah.
and saying, okay, fine, don't go against the family.
Yeah.
And so he was not allowed to come and share in the
Yeah.
Appomattox surrender.
Yeah.
That's just what I think, but that's why he did it. And
Yeah.
that's why he was hesitant because you're taking a big part of that army away. You don't know who you're going to be fighting.
Yeah. They
You
didn't
don't
know what was happening.
you know the army of Tennessee's coming. So
Yep.
you're going to have Hood, you're going to have
Yep.
all those guys, and we're probably going to need as many men as we can because if they go all out, full banana on Nashville,
Hmm.
we're going to have Thomas. We're going to have we'd like you to have all of our guys. We'd like you to be there, sure. So
I
again,
wonder if some of the mistrust that Grant had, that bias he had towards Thomas, and Lincoln had it too. Lincoln was not a huge fan of General Thomas. This is the guy that Thomas wins the first major Union victory at Mill Springs. And, Harper's Weekly is like, we're going to put him on the front cover, give him the centerfold, all that fun stuff. And Lincoln's like, no, you're not.
well,
He said the Virginian cannot be on it.
well,
But
don't forget too was Lincoln dispatched Grant to go to Nashville because he didn't trust Thomas, remember? And he actually
Yep.
started. He was on the road. He got a step in, towards Nashville, and finally they said, no, you're fine. You can come back to Virginia. That's how much distrust there was.
Hmm.
So again, that's a big reason why he wanted Sherman. And
Yeah.
now, nothing against Schofield. Schofield's very underrated. I mean, he really, really is. People rip on Hood for Spring Hill and even Nashville, but Schofield, he did some stuff. I mean,
He did, and he's not well liked. It's Thomas who's at Nashville, and that's why Grant is like, Blackjack, you need to go there.
but
Um,
this is just speculative. This is not
yeah,
fact.
yeah, we don't.
This is just what I think when you study these
Mhm.
people as people and the psychology of how Grant treated people like Rosecrans, right?
Yeah,
How he played people who kind of in his mind went against him,
like Lou Wallace.
like Lou Wallace, exactly. How it all adds up. But
Yeah,
he loved Sherman. Sherman loved Grant. But I think it was a little bit of I'm the man. Like when Longstreet, when Jackson got killed, Longstreet assumed he was going to be Lee's right hand man, and he was surprised to find out at Gettysburg that no, he was just a subordinate. He always
because
was.
yeah, because
Even Jackson
Longstreet.
was a subordinate, though.
Yeah, but Longstreet did not have the same relationship with Lee that Jackson had. There was two very different, like how Lee was with Longstreet was very different with how he was with Jack. Like not a lot, but there was definitely something there. Um, but just before I go into that, with the March of the Sea, so Sherman does his Meridian campaign. It's successful. And he kind of uses that as his launching point for like, well, I did this in Meridian, in Mississippi, like we can do it on a larger scale. And as you said, I agree with you. Definitely taking away all those troops was on his mind, like Lincoln and Grant's. And just the fact that Sherman is saying, what we're going to do with this is we're going to cut the telegraph wires when we leave. And you are not going to hear from us until we get to where we're going. That is, that's a huge thing right there. Like the letters that the letter leading into the march that Howard wrote to his wife, which he wrote on his birthday, was basically saying, you're not going to hear from me for a while. There
Mhm.
are not many, there's no letters that he wrote to his wife in that time period because the mail's not going to go out. Um, so he writes that. And the other thing too is like Howard hints at the March to the Sea starting when Sherman gets back to it when they're in Atlanta. Um, Howard starts hinting that he's been involved in the planning of it. And I think it was the two of them for a while planning it, talking it out, and then they bring Slocum in because I think Howard was picked as definitely one of the wing commanders from the
Mhm.
get-go. Sherman had, despite their differences, Sherman had a huge trust in Howard. Um, there's a letter he wrote when Howard came out west and said, I'm, basically paraphrasing here, but happy to have you as part of the team. I've heard what has happened to you in the East. Just know that, I hope you consider me a friend and I'm basically here to support you and I trust you. And I've read some stuff on social media lately that says Blackjack should have been given all of what Howard had, and I'm kind of like, not really. That I don't
Well, I
really.
mean, there aren't a lot of people who are simpaticos with you with Howard. They're very
And I
few.
don't want to come. The thing is when I study him is like, because I've seen some stuff on social media, I'm like, I do not want to be that like come across as a fangirl where I'm not looking at the bad of Howard because I recognize Howard is not perfect. He's not the best commander in the army. Um, just sidetracked her. One of the things I admire about him is how he always stuck by what he believed. Like he never backed off the abolitionism. He never backed when he had something in his mind. He's like, I'm going for it, and I'm kind of like the Petty song. I won't back down.
Well, he was consistent, and like you said, I think you said it best. He was true to what he actually believed in,
Yes.
and this is an era where it became very easy to change like the wind, right? Because you go what's more politically exigent, more important, right? And that's and so people like him, they held. I mean, and even the people on the other side they held. Some people they all kind of came more towards the middle with these, but some just held on to their points, held on to what it
Jubal
was.
Early.
Well, yeah, sure. But there are people who were set in their ways, both
Yep.
however whether you consider it good or bad, but they held on to it. But Howard was certainly one who never wavered, right till the end, and he never had a as they get older, reflect on his life, that well, maybe if I just didn't do this, he was consistent. And we talked, when we talked about North Carolina, a lot of the colony, the South Carolina, the colonies out there with Howard,
Yep.
educating and these free blacks who were out there. He was a big part of it, not just the Freedmen's Bureau.
Yep. Well,
So you
remember I
just,
found that letter last weekend?
yeah, I'm sure we hear about that soon.
Well, um, so I found a letter that Hancock wrote to Howard in 1864 in March, and he's basically it's very passive aggressive, but Howard wrote him a letter on February 24th or February 25th, 1864, which I want to find. I think it was 64, it might have been 60. Anyway, so and Hancock, he wrote what I got from the Hancock letters, Howard wrote Hancock and said, "Stop saying stuff about me in the newspapers." And Hancock wrote back, and it was all because Howard had been named a victor of Congress. And Hancock said, "This has only happened to you because they want you in the 1864 election." Whether that's implying that Howard is not going to run for president, but I think Hancock saying they want you to just support Lincoln in the 1864 election. And that's the only reason you're getting named as the victor of Congress. And it's clear from reading the letter, the undertone is that Hancock is very butthurt.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, that's a pattern with Hancock, right?
Yeah.
And he's somebody who his career is substantially promoted because of the movie Gettysburg, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, it is what it is. But he was someone who, when he gets wounded at Gettysburg, um, he gets taken to Philly,
Yeah.
and to get better. And who's from Philadelphia is George Meade. George Meade in the newspapers getting all kinds of credit for
Yeah.
the victory at Gettysburg. He can't handle it. So he goes back to Norristown, where his hometown is, to recoup, because he's sick of hearing about Meade. And I get it. And Hancock said a lot of good things, but I think he's someone who I think he's over embellished in a lot of different ways.
Mhm.
Yeah, but he wasn't even a corps commander at Chancellorsville. He takes over the Second Corps because Darius Couch quits because
Yeah.
he doesn't like Hooker. So there's a lot that goes into this with him. But again, he's someone who um, did not like the fact that he was not getting credit. And when that Congress thing
Oh,
came down and did not give him credit and gave Howard credit, I don't think he cared one less about Howard one way or the other. But I think he wanted the credit, and
yep.
he became jealous. There's all those stories I hear at Gettysburg about how there was this big argument at Cemetery Hills while the statues don't face each other. And that's just not true.
Yeah.
But I think the Hancock people tend to underestimate Howard's role in the first day at Gettysburg
Yes.
when they talk about he was here the entire battle, and no, he wasn't. He missed the whole first
He
day.
got here about 4:30 or 5
And,
o'clock.
so he there's a lot of that. Doesn't mean that anybody's bad. It just means that I think that there's an embellishment that's put in when it comes to him, and I don't necessarily understand it, but I get it to a point. But it spills into anti-Howard by Spice.
It,
There's some personal stuff involved with that, not just by
yeah.
the people, but the people who follow these people. There's a thing with that too. So who
Yeah,
knows?
there definitely is. And when I read this letter, I was like, I had to read it a couple times, and then I sent it to you, and I was like, read this over, tell me what you think. Like
Mhm.
I was seeing a lot of like passive aggressiveness in the letter from Hancock. Um, and I felt like he was trying to downplay Howard's role, like basically saying, you know what, you didn't just because you've been named a victor of Gettysburg, this is all political. It's nothing to do with what you did, kind of thing. And it tracks with Hancock's pattern of like the day he went to that the fire where Gibbon was, and Gibbon's sitting around the fire hanging out, and Hancock goes off on him, and Gibbon's like,
Yeah.
Gibbon is a guy that like I would not have. Hancock chose poorly in that
He
moment.
he didn't. I mean, he Gibbon and Hancock did not like each other. They hated each other, and
Yep.
they just did. I mean, it's obvious. Gibbon refused to work with him. I'm not joining. I have nothing to do with this guy again. After Ream Station, was I'm never work with this guy again, because he was so underprepared at Ream Station, and he got pantsed by AP Hill at Ream Station. Now, a lot of people would have. He was an old fort. They did. It was tough to defend.
Yeah.
Um, and it was a tough spot for him to be in. But it is what it is. I mean, you
Yeah.
have a situation where his second corps is literally running. That was, for the most part, that was the end of the second corps after that.
Yeah.
And so it goes to show when you, how can you blame Howard for not being able to defend, and they ran in Chancellorsville, but yet somehow you defend Ream Station when it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But hey, that's
Yeah.
what it is.
And our friend Hal is on here from snowy Littleton, Mass. Always happy to see him on here. And he said,
They're getting some snow this weekend.
yeah,
Tomorrow, yeah.
Howard said Hal said Howard sacrificed his corps to keep Ewell from rolling up the line.
I mean, yes and no, but he wasn't really. The thing about it though is he wasn't in charge of the corps. At that point, he was in charge of the army, because once Reynolds went down, Howard's in charge and Schurz is in charge of the corps. So
Yeah, Schurz
so,
is
so
the 11th
really
Corps.
the one who should get credit for that would be Schurz.
Yeah.
But where Howard does get credit, though, he was wise enough to know they had to defend Cemetery Hill. So he made sure
Yeah.
to put the batteries, to put all the soldiers on the hill, knowing that they were going to try to get that spot. So he did. Really was the. If you really want to look at why he was a hero of Gettysburg, is because he defended that hill. The focus of the Battle of Gettysburg in July 2nd, July 2nd, and 3rd was on Cemetery Hill. That was the
Yep.
focus of all 3 days. It was because Howard chose to defend
Yep.
it.
Youngest corps commander.
Right. And he wasn't the only one who realized the importance of it. Buford
Yep.
realized the importance of it. A lot of them did, but he realized this is what we need to do. And that's why he was feted for it. That's
Yep.
why he was credited for it.
But I do think Schurz doesn't get the credit for being commander of the 11th
but it's like,
Corps when
so
that happened.
Howard has been through some stuff, right?
He's seen some shit.
He's losing his mind. He's getting pushed back. And he finally gets men on Cemetery Hill. They're defending it, and you can only imagine their hearts are racing. They're all excited what they just did. Hancock rolls up Hancock, calm as a cucumber. He hasn't been in the battle, and he gets credited for calming the men like the statue. It's like, well, you weren't there. So of course you're going to be calm. So there's a lot of it that goes into that with that. I'm not trying to be anti-Hancock, but I think when you study the details of how it led to those moments,
Yeah.
you realize that some of these things are really overplayed. They really are.
And the thing too is, I've heard Howard criticized because when they got to the cemetery gatehouse and it was just him, Slocum, and Sickles, that Howard lost, like, quote unquote, lost his mind. He had a little bit of a like, oh my God moment. I'm sorry, but you've been up since 4:30 in the morning. You've suddenly become commander of the army temporarily, and you're having to think on your feet. You got routed at Chancellorsville, so the reputation of your corps is not great. He does really well. And the one thing about Howard is, and this was, what's his face from Iron Brigade said this. What's his face from Marietta, Ohio?
Rufus Dawes?
Dawes said that Howard and Hancock were
I'm here to help.
Thank you. Were both very calm when he got up there. And that was the one thing that Sherman said about Howard too, is he was always very calm. And other troops said it too. The only one that said he wasn't calm was Ames. And Ames had like a lot of biases against Howard as well. So that's where that comes from. And AQ said that, Barlow gets a lot of shit for day one, but his position on Blockers Knolls delayed the Confederates from going down to Cemetery Hill to secure the town. And our friend Bjorn is on here from Abraham Lincoln Bookshop.
Oh, cool. No, but the thing about Barlow's right though, because you're in a situation where you see Blockers Knoll and you realize what a good artillery platform that's going to be for those Georgians who are down there by the McLean farm.
There
right?
were Georgians at Gettysburg.
Rumor has it, yeah. And so you want to take that platform before the Georgians get there and put artillery there, which he did. And he created a salient. Yes, he moved his men up, but it's not his fault that Gordon's coming up behind, right? So what he did by moving forward is he created just enough chaos to delay everything and screw up everything. And you got 16th Maine, Charles Tilden, you got everything playing itself in there. John Cleveland Robinson. So it all ended up being a perfect storm, unintentionally, of delaying the Confederates to allow Howard and those guys to get to Cemetery Hill. So it's all part and parcel of the whole thing. But I never understood the 11th Corps retreating in Gettysburg phenomenon that people talk about.
Yeah, I don't understand it because they were all retreating.
Yeah, but they don't. I mean, the First Corps did too. First Corps was in a mad rush coming from the west. It's all the same thing, but there's a And it's probably because of the German part of it. There's probably a big
Yeah.
there's a big
There's a
part of it as
definite
well.
bias because they are primarily German core. They're not all German, but they're primarily German. There is language barriers with them, like the one guy that was like to cemetery and he
Yeah,
meant
Charles Wainwright. I mean, it's one of those breaks you get when they say we're retreating back to the cemetery, and it happens to be a guy with a heavy German accent telling
yep.
Wainwright he doesn't understand a word he's friggin' saying. I barely understand a word you say half the damn time. And he says cemetery in a heavy German accent. He turns around, he sees a seminary, he goes, well, maybe that seminary, that's what he's talking about. I'm gonna fall back there, put my guns up here, and that delays Perrin,
Hmm.
who would have rolled right through. And you got Lane behind him and Thomas. Forget, no one thinks about Thomas. He's in the back too. They would have rolled right through and they would have got between Cemetery Hill and the 1st and 11th Corps, would have broken the two in half. It would have been right in the middle. Hilarity ensues, everything ends.
Yep.
But
The
because of a
Zhuao's
but
dance.
because of a mistaken a word, he falls back. He's able to hold back that Confederate second wave to allow the 1st and the 11th to get back to Cemetery Hill. It's
Yep.
funny how history is. You think of these things being so black and white. Sometimes the littlest misinterpretation can change history, and that's
Yeah.
what happened with Wainwright. In Charles Wainwright, in his diary, it describes it perfectly. I don't understand what the friggin' guy's talking about because I heard seminary. I turned around, there's a seminary. I guess that's where he wants me to go. So that's where we went. It's just a cool part of the history.
Yep. Christopher asked me a question. He said, have you ever read Charles Howard's article in the Gettysburg Papers, Volume 1? I have not. I'll have to look for that.
There's a lot to read. There's a lot of good stuff to
Yeah,
read.
there's his brother wrote letter because Charles was his kind of like his staff member. They were together in the war, and they both got wounded at Fair Oaks. Charles got shot in the leg, and the other brother Roland was like involved with I think the Sanitary Commission. He was like his brother. He was very religious, so he was involved in kind of the Christian Sanitary Commission part of the war as well. So there's some letters from them too. Um, but yeah, this letter I found that Hancock wrote, and now I'm on the like a crazy search for the one that Howard wrote to Hancock because he must have been ticked for to write that letter. Like there must have been some stuff going on in the newspapers. And the other thing I found too that I can get from, there's a couple different archives I can get it from, is in 1876, Howard wrote an article about the first day of Gettysburg. And it
Mm-hmm.
mentions Doubleday and it mentions Hancock. And the article, the summary I read was he's right, like basically correcting some stuff that was said.
Mm-hmm.
And I do wonder if there was articles coming out that were more pro Hancock and kind of going against the Howard and also what Doubleday did as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Oh, Charles Howard was the son. So he talks about his dad rallying the troops on Cemetery Hill. Interesting. Oh, that's cool. It's
yeah.
interesting the timeline of when Hancock arrived while his dad was already rallying the troops. Yeah,
Well, that's
yeah,
what we were saying a few minutes
his
ago.
dad was rallying the troops.
And this is not this is not to diminish Hancock arriving, but he jumped on an ambulance wagon, wanted to make sure he got there. He did what he had to do, but he got there and a lot of it was already done. And I
Mhm.
don't want to minimize it, but it's coming in, it's coming out of the bullpen with the 3-run lead in the ninth, and you seal the deal.
Yep.
Um, a lot of that framework of the baseline of Cemetery Hill was done by Howard.
Mhm.
It's something that people forget about. There's definitely a strange bias, like I said a few minutes ago, about him in the Civil War community, especially the Gettysburg community.
Yeah, and then when he goes out west, there's this bias with people that are very pro blackjack and how blackjack got screwed. And it's like, and I do think it goes back to like, and Howard is the type of guy too. One of his faults, and I've read this in a couple biographies about him, and I agree with it. One of his faults is that when he was accused of being wrong, he was like, no, we're not doing that. And he would kind of stick to it, like be like, or if he, like when Sickles was given command of the Third Corps before he got command of the 11th Corps, Howard's like, whoa, 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 we're not playing this game. This is a political general. I went to West Point. I outrank him. Where's my command?
Yeah,
And that's
well,
where, and people saw that as him being like, they see that as a negative, but then like, I think I'm like, would I have done something like that? I might have had it's kind of like when you get passed over for a promotion, someone that came in after you was like getting promoted, and then it's like, whoa, 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 you
No,
know?
I get that, especially in the military. I mean, don't forget these are all alpha dog type people, and it doesn't. And that's not to sit there and minimize Hancock. I mean, he did good at what he did, um, but he was someone who I think he's somebody who there were a lot of really good Union Corps commanders who came along the way.
Yeah,
Hooker was a great Union commander in the First Corps. And Tatum, he was fantastic. He got
yeah,
hurt, he got shot in the foot at Antietam, and it kind of unraveled the whole thing. Um, but Meade was really good in the Fifth Corps, and so Hancock was pretty good, but he was not a corps commander that long, if you really
no.
think about it, because he takes over after Chancellorsville, he gets wounded at Gettysburg, and he disappears for a while. He'll come back during the Overland campaign, and by then it's spring, summer of '64. The war's only got a year to go, so it wasn't like he was in charge all this time.
Mhm.
Um, but I think a lot of it is I think it's a lot of popular culture with him. The movie's a big thing for
Yeah,
Hancock.
the
And
movie,
same with Chamberlain, same with all of them. I mean, it says a lot when the commanding general George Meade has one scene in that movie,
it's not even correct.
and it's not even correct. I mean, and so, but I get it. People can like who they want to
Yeah.
like, but I think people because people like this certain person, therefore they don't like this certain person. When I think the people who study this person don't know a lot about this person anyway, and it creates an issue. And that's the problem
Yeah.
I see with certain people. You
And
know,
one thing I just want to say before we get to a question that we've had here is, so last Saturday we watched Saturday or Sunday, we watched the movie Raise the Titanic. Yeah, it was
yeah,
Sunday night. Excellent movie. Rated
yeah,
as one of the worst movies ever made, but if you have Tubi, watch it. It is check your brain at the door, suspend reality. It's got Richard Jordan, who played Hancock, in it, and it's also got Obi-Wan Kenobi. What's his face in it?
Alec Guinness,
Alec Guinness.
Sir Alec
Sir
Guinness.
Alec Guinness. Anyway, I said to you this morning, I said that the way that Robert Jordan played Dirk Pitt, he seems more like he was Armistead's personality in that movie than what he was when he played Armistead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he's very like to the point, kind of grumpy, a little bit arrogant. And that seems to me more like Armistead's personality. Was that's what he was playing in that movie, is Dirk Pitt was more like Armistead than when he played Armistead.
Yeah, Armistead in the movie Gettysburg, he was very weepy. He was a little more emotional. Armistead was a crusty. I mean, he'd been through a tough situation, lost his wife, lost his children. So he wasn't. I don't think he got all weepy listening to old Kathleen Mavourneen at the
No,
fire. You know what I mean? But I think, but he did a great job in that movie, though. It's too bad that he died pretty much as
I
soon as they finished
know.
filming it because he didn't get a chance to take the victory laps. He could have come down here at the reunions. We could have hung out with him and hung out with Freeman,
I would have been like, I loved you as Dirk Pitt.
James Lancaster. You know,
Billy Campbell, and Dick Roman as well.
yeah.
So the question is from Trevor: why did Shelby Foote dislike General Sheridan? Was it due to the burning of the valley?
Look, I like Shelby Foote.
I love him. He's a
It's so
great
funny.
story. As Luke said, he's a great storyteller.
I've read his courses in their stars in their courses book. I've read his book on Shiloh. I've read almost everything he's ever written, and he's a great. Yeah, like you said, he's a storyteller. He doesn't put footnotes or endnotes in his book.
No,
He doesn't feel like he needed to. He's very, very, very pro Southern. Very pro Southern, obviously. I think he's from Mississippi.
yeah,
He's a big fan of big
Forrest.
fan Forrest, Gordon, Lee, all of them. And I think a lot of the polarizing northern people like Sheridan are people he's someone he's not going to line up with. And
I
that's
don't like
just
Sheridan. I'm a northerner.
no, but I think that's a big part of it. Obviously he's old Shelby's been gone for a while, so we need Miss Cleo to find out what he really thinks about him. But I
Miss
think
Cleo. Oh,
yeah, Miss Cleo. Oh, but I think but I think that's probably why. Because it makes sense, but who knows? There might be something more to it, but I think it probably has to do with the Valley. I don't know too many Southerners who like Sheridan. I don't think too many people, you know.
yeah, I'm not a fan as a northerner. I'm not. I mean, I respect what he did as a guy in the army, but I don't know. There's something about him that really annoys me. And I think it goes back to how he treated Warren. Um, I think I pretty much feel like him how Mosby did.
Oh yeah,
Not our cat, the actual dude.
I know.
Um, but the thing is like Mosby was just such a thorn in Sheridan's side. And then Sheridan was the one that hung his guys.
Well, that whole thing. I mean, you have to understand. Um, you're going to hang us. We're going to hang you. And that, I mean, Mosby was a absolute pain in the butt to Sheridan in the Union Army. He did everything so well. He was impossible. He was one step ahead the whole time. Um, and that was a matter of time. One thing Mosby was not was he was not a guerrilla type killer like
No,
Bloody Bill Anderson was or people like
no.
that were. So, but I think the understanding is that he probably was.
Yeah.
But who knows?
But it like just that is James said quite a few Northerners too. Small man syndrome. Oh yeah, Sheridan, it's small man syndrome.
Sheridan was a guy. I mean, you saw it all the way until the end. The way he handled Gouverneur Key Warren going towards the end there.
Didn't you say he's like a lottery ticket that like you win nine or you lose nine times and the 10th time you win? And it's like,
Yeah, exactly. People do lottery tickets because you lose most of the time. And when you're finally about to quit, you scratch it and you win $400. Oh, here we go. Now I'm back in again. He screwed up a lot, but he did just enough well. But he also did his job well for the most part.
yeah,
There was so many attempts at the Valley. The great Nathaniel Banks, right from Waltham, Mass. He
yeah.
tried, he failed. A lot of guys failed along the way. It wasn't until they got Sheridan in place he finally took Grant's scorched earth process. And really, they didn't have that up front. It wasn't until when Grant came east he did that, but he did it like a boss.
I think it was after Meridian campaign that Grant realized that this is the way we need to go. And I do think the Meridian campaign from Sherman, it doesn't get talked about a lot, but it is something that is very influential in the March to the Sea as well as going into the Valley as well. Because you have to remember the Valley is happening, the burning of the Valley is happening a little bit before the March, right? October 1864. The
Yep.
march happens in November of 1864 into December. It's about a month long. Um, but you have, so I think going back to Western Theater and Sherman's Meridian campaign, his Meridian campaign has that kind of impact that I don't think it's looked at enough. And that's again why you can't study the Civil War kind of in these silos. Like you can't look at the Valley and be like, oh, well, why did he do that? Well, it's because it had been Sherman proved when he did his campaign and Meridian campaign that it works. You can live off the land. You can do that. And this is how, and I think Sherman saw psychologically how it broke people. That he realized this is how we have to win the war. And he's reeling this back to Grant. And that's why, you know, Sheridan does what he does in the Valley, and everything Sherman gets blamed for on the march, Sheridan does in the Valley.
Well, we've talked about that many times. I mean, that aspect of the history was done primarily for a lot of different reasons, and it was similar to what mentioned Sherman was doing too. A lot of it was to get the Confederates to leave Virginia, to come back and leave that
Yes.
fortification to go protect their families. I mean, when you're looking, I mean, this was not new. I mean, one aspect, you look at all these battles, specifically in Antietam, and you look at how the Union troops dealt with the civilians after that battle. They stole everything they friggin' had.
Hmm.
They mistreated people. The doctors were rude to the locals, the women. I mean, it was tough because they're in a tough spot because during that battle, the Confederates held Sharpsburg and
Yeah.
they were stealing their food, they were doing all their things. When the Confederates left, the Union came in. They thought it was Sharpsburg was mostly a pro-Union town.
Yeah.
The Union came in and the men really, really mistreated the locals. I mean, really, really mistreated them. And it's kind of unfair. So this is this was warfare. This is par for the course.
Hmm.
You're going to steal all their linens. You're going to rip their houses down for firewood. You're going to have a hospital in every single room. You're going to be told you can't come back to your house. You're going to take their horses. You're going to take their animals. And that's what they just did. And the Union they made no effort to stop them, the command. And it's not to be an indictment of McClellan's army, but that's just war.
Yep.
And the goal was to get this thing as done as you certainly can. Hard war was the answer, and it proved to be true.
Yeah, and Hal said, but wasn't Sherman's meridian campaign just a further proof of concept on Grant's move across Mississippi below Vicksburg and move on Jackson?
Well, we said before it was kind of his test run for the march to
Yeah.
see if they could live off the land. I mean, he had Suey Smith try it, and he was pretty incompetent overall. And
Shaggy?
Shaggy, yeah, he does, but he's also going up against Forrest too. But it did work though. He was able to pull it off for the most part, and it did teach Sherman, something. We could probably do this. And it goes to show that heading back before Meridian, he had the concept of the March to the Sea in his head
Yep.
for whatever reason. And it kind of it's weird because when you look at it, it history shows it is just a transfer from point A to point B to get to Savannah to get the supplies from the ocean to move up towards Petersburg. But you can tell Sherman wanted something more out of it.
Yeah.
But he did not go in this big burning thing and destroy the whole state
No.
like the Southerners think they do. He did some though. I mean, he certainly did. Ulrich Dahlgren did a lot of stuff in Virginia on his march that he did.
Yep.
So it's famous because of Margaret Mitchell. It's famous because of Gone with the Wind, and so
Yeah.
it gets played
And
up.
it gets a lot of that historical memory. There's some talk about Bloody Bill Anderson in here, and Bjorn recommended a book. Albert Castell and Thomas Goodrich wrote Bloody Bill Anderson, The Short, Savage Life of a Civil War Guerrilla. Frank suggested there needs to be an episode about Bloody Bill at some point.
Yeah, I mean he's a
Yeah.
bad guy because he was Bloody Bill Anderson. I mean he was part of the guerrillas who were not really associated with any specific army. They would wait outside of trains for Union troops to come off from furlough and try to kill the soldiers coming off the trains. I mean it was bad. He got his along the way.
Yeah,
Um,
1864,
but
October
but the
26th,
but
he's
but the problem with Bill Anderson was you kind of associate him with Morgan and Mosby and people like that,
and they're not the same.
and they're totally different. They're night and day. Um, but that's just the way it is. Even before Mosby was added to be a partisan, because the Partisan Act came 1862, right around there, which allowed Mosby to be a partisan ranger.
Yeah.
Before that, he was doing his thing, but he was part of an official army. A lot of that stuff, and this is why a lot of the acts of people like Bloody Bill Anderson, I have to think, were part of the reason why Lee did not want to take the war into the mountains
Yeah.
after Appomattox and fight a guerrilla war, because I think he saw what some of these people are capable of doing. Hell, it'd
Yeah.
still be going today, probably. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, and I mean Mosby wasn't like that, and neither was Morgan. We've done episodes on both of them. They weren't like that, especially Mosby. Mosby is more like, oh, hey, I'll spank you and let you go, which is literally he did spank a guy.
Morgan?
No, Mosby.
Oh yeah, they both did. Morgan. Morgan was a guy who, I mean, he scared the hell. I mean, he scared the city of Cincinnati more than the L.A. Rams did. I mean, this is a guy who was who made the whole city mobilize, and he goes to prison. He escapes from prison. John Hunt Morgan is a fascinating story, very fascinating story.
Mhm.
He got done in by an ex-Confederate who flipped sides.
Yeah, the guy that didn't go to a wedding or something.
He was one of the guards at his wedding.
Yeah,
Morgan at the wedding even said wedding cake out to the guards,
and the guy still shot him.
and he was shot in his pajamas, shot in the back, running away in his PJs. I don't know if he had the back flap open or not, but who knows? But he had those old time pajamas. He got shot in the garden, and it's too bad because he was somebody who he did his job, but he was not a straight up murder.
Yeah,
You know.
well, and that's how Mosby was. He did his job. He had his fun with what's his name, Stoughton.
Well, Stone, yeah. Well, Stone was a different cat. When you look at the Fairfax raid, it absolutely brilliant part of his career. It
Mhm.
certainly was. To be able to sneak into the town, and be able to get him out of there was just fascinating.
Yeah, my birthday tradition that we do weekend of my birthday or leading up to it is to go on a Mosby tour with our friend John.
That's a good thing because John, I don't think John's on here today. He must be
No,
doing something in his life meaningful. He
drinking white wine.
he's kind of probably he's kind of our Mosby expert. He's
Yeah,
someone who he knows where all the spots are. He's that guy who knows where the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively.
yeah. He's got his
Um,
file folder that he carries around.
he carries around. We went to Frying Pan Church from that day. We found the Mosby rock together that day.
There's the one
Um,
place we're never going back to.
oh yeah, that whole thing.
Trevor said in California, a young George S. Patton hung out with General Mosby.
Yeah, that's a story that, it's funny. Some
Debunk
people,
that.
I think it's true though. The story is he taught Patton to ride a horse when he was young. And that's probably true. But some people go, well, that never happened. But I think it did. It's a cool story.
Well, on the
Um,
Mosby, if you go into where he was, like Mosby territory, you can go to this one house where Mosby got the orders from Jeb, where Jeb was sleeping on the porch. You can go to see where Mosby disbanded the Rangers, that they never had to surrender. They were disbanded.
I know a guy who laid down on that porch, pretended he was
Yeah,
sleeping.
you did.
Remember? I did. Took that picture.
AQ, white wine is refreshing, Jay Gentili.
He needs to be like the Ernest Gallo guy. That's what he needs to be.
I don't know who that
I don't
is.
usually drink beer, but when I do, I usually drink
Oh,
wine.
the most interesting man in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah. But
That actually is him.
when I do, I drink white wine because it's refreshing. Such a weird guy.
That's got to be a meme. Um, but yeah, and there was another place we went where I remember John was telling the story, and Mosby went there long after the war. It was only about 2 or 3 years before he died, and he cried.
Yeah.
One of the houses we went to.
No, I mean,
I actually think it was the Jeb Stuart house.
I think it was the Jeb Stuart House. But there's a lot of really cool places. You go down to Loudoun County, Fairfax, that area down in Virginia.
Like you can
All
see
the
Antonia Ford's grave,
and
which is at
Antonio
a
Ford is right.
hotel.
It's in the front of a hotel. Yeah. Well, obviously the hotel came later on, but
Yeah.
it's a modern hotel. But there's a lot of cool things you can visit from that. But Frying Pan Church is still there. You can still visit a lot of the places that Mosby visited.
Yeah.
We did find the Mosby Rock,
We did.
where he met behind that apartment complex now. You can, but it's still there. It's much smaller apparently now, but there's a lot of cool places to see. And he's a fascinating study. But speaking of tours, next week we're doing the Dave Taylor
Yep.
thing next Friday with him, and he's doing his Lincoln assassination booth escape tour.
Yeah.
And he's somebody who, if you know him, he's been on YouTube for a while. If you go to YouTube and do Dave Taylor Lincoln assassination, he's been doing this for God forever. And he's young. He's probably 40, right?
If
And
that, I think
yeah,
I've known Dave for oh 15 years now. Never met him in person.
yeah, but he's a good dude, and he's going to be doing this. He's going to be doing the tour, and you can pay some money to go in all the cool places. And there's food involved, and they take you in a bus and all that stuff. And we did it
Not
ourselves.
Boston.
No, I said bus.
Oh, bus. I was like,
Yeah, you
oh,
can take a
Boston.
bus. No, but you can do all this stuff, so it's pretty cool. But we did it about a few months ago with some friends of ours, and I kind of ran the tour just ourselves. But he does it
Yeah.
formally. We can go in a lot of the places. So we're gonna have him on, and we're doing an episode with him next week, and then we'll drop that probably Friday night or Saturday.
Yeah.
But sign up for it if you can, because we're gonna go for the April one, and I think that'll be really cool.
Yeah.
But he's just a fascinating guy. He knows his stuff. He has access to a lot of the buildings that people don't. You can do the tour yourself. You can go to the Mud House. You can go to the Surratt House, but you can't go to Rich Hill. You can't go to Quisenberry's house. You can't go to Huckleberry. You can't go to a lot of the places inside. So he's going to be able to get inside of these places. So if you want to see
Mhm.
real history, and if you haven't done the tour, even if by yourself, definitely do it because it is a fantastic tour to do.
Yeah.
It's beautiful and it's pristine. Seeing that countryside, seeing all the things that you would have seen exactly what Booth and exactly what Harold have seen going through, and whether if you appreciate the assassination or you don't like Booth, you hate him, I get all that, but it's a cool part of history to study and see. And he does such a good job with it.
Yeah. So I put a couple links. I put a link to Abraham Lincoln Bookshop. That's where from Bjorn, who's on here. You can get all your great history books there, and they've got like artifacts, really cool stuff as well. I put a link to Dave Taylor's Lincoln Conspirators Tour. Another thing we're going to be doing coming up is we're going to be recreating an 1863 photo with our friend Andrea
That's
as
right.
well. That is very cool. We are looking forward to that. Charles is on here. He said, "Let me know when you come to Fairfax. I'm a docent at Blenheim Graffiti House."
Well, yeah, but we were going to go there with John, but it was closed that day. Remember?
Yeah. Well, now we
So
have someone that we can
okay,
contact.
so all right, awesome. So we'll definitely take you up on that because we went there. We tried to go. I don't know when the hell we did that, but we went there and it was closed and it was other stuff going on. But remember John
Yeah.
wanted to climb on the property.
And we were like, no, you cannot do this.
We weren't going to go inside, but it was close.
No.
But no, I appreciate that. We'll definitely
Yeah,
keep that
that'll
in mind.
be because we're gonna do that probably the second weekend in August, which will be my birthday weekend. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
And then Rick said Patton's grandfather was a Confederate brigadier who was killed at Cedar Creek. Mosby, who became a Republican during Reconstruction, was a friend of the Patton family.
Hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, there's definitely a connection with that. It's just a what we said before. This debate whether he taught him how to ride the horse. Who the hell knows? But it's I'm sure he met him, and I'm sure he hung around with him, and I can't imagine why he wouldn't have. Um, but that's gonna be fun doing that with Andrew. That'd be a good time. I don't know if she's gonna have one of those old timey cameras or not. You have to stand still for a while. It'd be hard for you. It'd be hard for me.
Just gonna be a regular camera.
But either way, that'll be a good time. So we'll definitely
Yeah.
look forward to that. A lot of cool stuff is coming. I'm just
Also
ready for.
coming, also coming up, I just want to say, Reenactor Weekend is coming up here in Gettysburg, March 14th. We will be at Gettysburg, or Getty's Gear. We're going to be doing a presentation on the Irish Brigade. So it's
Yeah.
free. Stop by. There's other presentations happening as well throughout the day. They have stuff going on over at the Heritage Center. So if you're in town, go see the museum there and then come over to Getty's Gear. And Getty's Gear also has amazing coffee. They've got cigars. Amazing cigars,
We have awesome
including
cigars,
they
Breakfast Club
do.
cigars.
Yes, they have Breakfast Club
No,
cigars.
but that's a good day because it's all day of history. Our Ken Rich is going to be doing a
Yep.
presentation. Our friend Matt calls him the Red Shirt Man. He'll be
Yep.
there. Um, we have a lot of people doing presentations that day. We go on at 10, and then Nick Mitch is a local musician. He's playing. There's going to be cigars.
There's
There's
gonna
going
be
to be
bourbon tasting at night as
bourbon tasting.
well.
It's going to be bands. It's going to be a fun day if you're in the area. And it's a weekend for promote reenactments. So people who do reenactments, we know a lot of people who do.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing too. And that'll be a lot of fun. That'll be a good time. I'm ready for this warm weather. It stinks that we're going to get snow. The Mass is going to get smoked tomorrow, man.
I know. I think our friend Hal is going to get a little bit of snow tomorrow.
I have a friend who was in Puerto Rico all week, and she's coming back to Mass yesterday, and now she's going from the beach to the blizzard. So she's happy. I was there yesterday. I got out of there just in time.
You were in Puerto Rico yesterday?
No, I wasn't. I wish I was Puerto Rico.
Were you hanging out with Bad Bunny?
I was wear my little tight little bathing suit, my banana hammock, get out there on the beach.
I like Bad Bunny. He's very talented.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, absolutely. But no, that'll be fun to that'll be cool. So hopefully you can come that weekend. So anybody who's around the area, even if you're not, it'd be a good weekend to come up here, but that weekend in March. So
Yeah, and the weather by this point, I mean, right today I'm looking outside. It's beautiful and sunny. And I'm thinking like I want to go outside and smoke a cigar today because it's been a while since I smoked a cigar. Um, but yeah, tomorrow's going to be not very nice at all. So he was just joking around. He asked if it's going to be an 1863 recreation of a Lookout Mountain photo. So one thing I found when I went down a rabbit hole with these Howard letters last weekend, because sometimes I'll just be looking for one specific letter and I start reading them. So him and his brother went on, I don't know, some ride up Lookout Mountain one day randomly. They took a picture where every single picture you've seen from Lookout Mountain during the Civil War has been taken.
oh, that's cool.
There's a picture of them there, and I want to find that picture. It's Howard and his brother and a few other people.
You know the famous picture of Grant peeing in the woods. Look on
Yeah,
Mountain.
so that was the one like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna recreate this. Did not pee, obviously, but I stood in the same spot he did.
No, you could have, I suppose, theoretically. I don't think he was. If you look at it, he looks like he's peeing. He's got the cigar in his mouth. That's the peeing Graham picture, but who the hell knows if that's true or not. But no, Lookout Mountain's great though. I'm glad we visited that. That's you want to talk about a beautiful view. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. That whole area is nice though, because Chickamauga's right there, Chattanooga's right there. You can look over Missionary Ridge. You're on Lookout Mountain.
Yeah.
You can see everything.
Waxahachie, Browns Ferry. Didn't you say, was it Browns Ferry? You said is the most covert.
That was one of the most covert actions in the Civil War, actually, in military history. That's up there with Bruinsburg and Vicksburg. If you think
Because it
about it,
opened up the cracker line, right?
it did. It did. And Bruinsburg is it sets up everything from the
For
going back
Vicksburg campaign.
with Grierson and everything going forward. And it's just so many cool little things like that because that's something that really hadn't been done before. The landing of Bruinsburg was the largest amphibious landing in a war up until World War II at D-Day.
That was where they got the boats down the river, right?
Yeah,
Past
and
them.
they got them. They disembarked and went over to Columbia, came west, and that was the Battle of Vicksburg. That was great.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Get ready to jump off here pretty soon. It's already 11:45.
Yep. Yeah. Not that we
Busy.
have stuff to do today, but
No, I think well, our weekend's gonna be condensed to today because it's gonna start snowing here. I don't think we're getting too much. I think we're getting
yeah.
I think we're getting about 4 or 5 inches of snow at most. But I've seen like back in God's country, back in
Yeah, where Hal said they're getting the snow.
they're getting 2 feet of snow. Our old stomping grounds on the Cape and Plymouth getting 2 feet of snow.
So how much is Littleton? Where's Littleton?
It's
That's where Hal's.
Metro west of Boston.
Okay. Bjorn said he said a Brown's Ferry episode, which we've never done before.
No, that's when it's
That's what we're
definitely
gonna
on
add to
the
the list.
that's definitely on in the hopper. And then there's a lot of ones we're going to do. I know we've talked about doing an episode of Mexico around Cinco de Mayo. We've talked about that.
Yeah, that was when Frank said we should do.
There's things like a lot of people have done that. We want to do obviously one on Glorieta Pass. A lot of cool stuff. That's what's amazing about this is there's so many different things, and people send us episode ideas, and and we a lot of we like, yeah, okay, that's cool, let's do that.
Yeah, we write it down. We won't. It's not that we won't get to. We will get to it eventually. And just gonna say, Hal said Wahatchee, all that, the Cracker Line plan. He said it was planned before Grant arrived.
And that was that was
Thank you.
Rosecrans.
Thank you.
Don't say that to the Grant people.
No, but thank you.
No, it is. He facilitated that, but the Cracker Line was a brilliant plan. It was kind of like the airlifting into Berlin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It kind of was. If you think about how history repeats itself here and there, would come a century later. But there's a lot. We get a lot of great updates as far as ideas. I mean, and sometimes the only challenge is we've got. How, can you do one on this guy? And it's like, well, the problem is, there's not a lot of research on certain
Yeah.
people, and there are some that are easier to research than others.
Yeah.
But it's great to do that. But definitely, a lot of cool connections with this stuff too.
Yeah. Bjorn said, "Hey, first Kansas episode was really good, so thank you for that, Bjorn." And he said it was Jayhawker approved.
Jayhawker, very good.
What is a Jayhawker?
That's part of Kansas. That was part of James
Lane's
brigade. It eventually became Lane's brigade with the Jayhawkers. I got to ask Bjorn though, how in the world do you guys lose the Chicago Bears to Indiana? How the hell does that happen? My gosh.
He's gonna come back and be like, "I'm not a Bears fan."
It doesn't matter. He's in Chicago. There must be some scuttlebutt going on. He's getting ready for White Sox season. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the playoffs for the White Sox. Probably not. Who knows? But yeah,
thinking his head at you right now.
No, but that's big story out there. But there's a lot of. I was sitting in a bar yesterday, in Providence, and there was a guy next to me from Chicago, and I asked him about the Bears. He's like, I don't know what the hell that's ever going to freaking happen. But that's the scoop, and I don't know. But that's the deal. The Indiana Bears.
Yeah, Charlotte's laughing at your comment right now.
Oh, huh? I don't know how we did it. It's probably Bjorn's fault. It's probably the Malort's fault. Probably.
Oh God, I would have that again. It just tasted like cough syrup.
Yeah, we did. Mary had her first shot of Malort at the Billy Goat Tavern in Chicago. At the cheeseburger
Bjorn
Saturday
and
Night Live
Amanda
bar
were
with
us.
our friend Amanda and
Yeah.
Bjorn, and we hit that. That was pretty funny.
So Bjorn's like, clearly we lost the Bears because they got good.
That's exactly. They're good again. We can't have that.
Charlotte said the Gare Bears.
The Gare Bears are going to Gary, Indiana.
No.
Yeah, isn't that where Michael Jackson's from? Gary, Indiana.
That is like such a bad area.
I know it's on it. I mean, yeah.
I had a friend my friend Kevin was a trucker, and he told me one time he stopped in Gary, Indiana for fast food, and the woman handed him his fast food from Wendy's and said, "You need to go eat this elsewhere." And he's like, "You mean not in the parking lot?" And she's like, "No, the next town over."
Yeah. Well, I think the most disgusting city in Indiana is South Bend, but that's a little different world. So, all right. So why don't we get ready to jump off? So we'll get ready to roll here. So we're gonna be joining Dave Taylor. He'll be joining us on Friday. We're gonna record that, and we'll drop that probably Saturday. We're gonna talk a lot about the Lincoln Assassination Tour, the Booth Escape Tour. Not just his tour, but just in general. We're gonna talk about the schematics.
Kind of how his tour factors in what the history is behind the sites he's going to and all that.
And talk about it. So I think we posted a link to his tour, so you can do it. We're going to go in the April one. So if you want to join us, you want to join the cool kids and join the tour. Well, that's our plan. So we're going to do that. So we'll go with that. Maybe there'll be some Malort. You can sneak some Malort on the bus.
Oh God, could you imagine? Yeah, how are we gonna get Malort in this part of the world?
I don't know. Maybe
We're
Amanda will
not.
bring some when she comes down. This will be like the Jay Peterman real life tour from Seinfeld. That's gonna be us on the bus. He'll be driving the bus, telling everybody to shut up, probably. But anyway, that's how it's gonna be. All right. So why don't we jump off? So what's your score prediction, Mary? We got a game tomorrow to watch at 8 o'clock in the
mean,
morning.
I want Canada to win. I realize I'm not gonna have beer for tomorrow, so
Well, I'm not too big on predictions lately because everything I pick goes friggin'
no,
wrong.
I'm
But
not. I'm not gonna predict anything at this point. I just want
I just think all I'll say is the U.S. is going to have to play almost a perfect game to win tomorrow. Almost a perfect game. And when you have a goalie from U Lowell, I don't care how good he's playing. You can take the goalie out of Lowell, but you can't take the Lowell out of the goalie. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So it
yeah,
should be a
thank
good
you.
game. 8 o'clock in
Yeah.
the morning. So
Yeah, thank you to everyone who came on here today to join us. Appreciate your support as always. Our next episode drops late next Friday night or early Saturday morning, depending. James, thank you. Team Canada support. Yes, thank you. Appreciate
yeah,
it.
it's gonna be a house divided, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but we will hopefully be back here again next
But the
weekend.
U.S. women, though, Mary, Team Megan,
Yep.
she won.
Yep, that was a good game, a very good game.
Always going to be BC Eagle, Meg Keller, famous forever. So, all
Yep.
right, so off we go. So, any final words from you?
No, like I said, thank you to you for bringing it like you always do with
Yeah.
this, for knowing, for sometimes we get asked questions. I'm like, I don't know the answer to that. So I hope Darren does, and you always do. So
And you put me on the spot.
we appreciate everybody who comes on here and comments and ask questions. And it's cool to see you guys talking with each other in the chat too. So that's really awesome. So hopefully we'll be back here with you guys next week. Anyway, have a good weekend. Go Canada and